Music of the Year 2001. Alternative rock is when you were looking at and observing one rock and making comments on it, and then suddenly you notice another rock, and you start commenting and making observations on that. That other rock becomes the alternative rock. I steal jokes from Uncyclopedia. I am so funny. Okay, you guys should know the actual definition of the term alternative rock. It's a term that is used to describe rock that isn't mainstream rock. Or if you're from Britain, you call it indie rock. However, by 2001, it seemed like alternative rock was the mainstream. So let me go ahead and explain what this video is. Basically, if it's an album that fits under the indie, alternative, or art rock umbrella, it's gonna be here. Unless it more easily fits under any of the other categories that I'll be using throughout this series. This is probably going to be the longest section, so strap in, we're gonna be talking about 22 fucking albums here. Okay, let's get this started. Gorillaz, self-titled. While this isn't Demon Days level of quality, it is still pretty good. Now, when this thing came out, it was considered absolutely phenomenal. That's because this was one of those first big multimedia type of projects, which was an album that had a lot of animation that went along with it. This animation and the story that it follows really complements the album. However, I wouldn't be lying if I didn't say Gorillaz really perfected the format from Demon Days onwards. A lot of these songs, they're chill. They're great and catchy, but unfortunately they don't really seem to flow together as a cohesive whole for me. I really do like the song Clint Eastwood, and the closing track is absolutely incredible. But seeing as we've seen exactly how good the Gorillaz can get, this thing pales in comparison. So it doesn't get much more than a B from me. No More Shall We Part, Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds. Oh, sweet mama, we got a good one on our hands today. We're getting right into the big leagues. So I didn't see this one listed in too many places, so when I saw it recommended to me for 2001, I was like, well, I liked murder ballads, but I didn't really like a lot of Cave's earlier post-punky type of material. So I wasn't really expecting to be wowed by this album, but I was wowed by this album. Everything on it sounds like the depths of emotional anguish. And this is easily Cave's best vocal performance, at least out of the albums that I have heard already. And who could blame him for wanting to do something like this? The man was sobering up after a few near-death experiences from alcohol abuse. And as someone who has had to sober up on more than one occasion, it can be a very intense experience trying to get your life together. He wrote something much more to the point, but it is dramatic in all of the right ways. A+. The Green Album, Weezer. Yeah, damn straight, we are reviewing a Wheezy album today! This Lil Wayne album was a follow-up to their classic Pinkerton. However, a lot of people didn't see Pinkerton as a classic, so the band ended up taking this long break. And when they came back, they tried to give us this album that was supposed to be a return to form. And goddamn, if you heard Island in the Sun as a single, you believe that they were coming back to form here. And I know some people really do like this album, but for me, I was checking my watch just being all like, how is this thing so boring for being the album with Island in the freaking Sun on it? And it's not like it's not trying. These songs have a pulse to them. They're fast-paced, but I was like, okay, I'm about ready to be done with this. I don't have much else to say. It just left me wanting to listen to The Carter 3, C+. The Origin of Symmetry, MUSE. Man, this thing disappointed me. Now, the first half of this album fucking slams. It is just epic song after epic song, balls to the frickin' wall good. I was about ready to slap a good old A grade onto this thing. And then I got to the second half. See, this is the issue I have with MUSE. They're not a bad band, they're all very talented musicians. However, they try to sell how talented they are. Look at what we can do with these guitars. Look at how great Matt Bellamy is at singing. And the thing is that's fine and all to an extent. Eventually you just need to kind of calm down and stop firing on all cylinders. It gets exhausting. That being said, it's not a bad listen. I'm just complaining because I just wish they calmed down and let you breathe here and there. B. Amnesiac, Radiohead. Alright, Radiohead fanboys, and that includes me. How many of you guys would say that this is one of the all-time great Radiohead albums? Okay, fine, yeah, I know it's kind of regained something of a classic stature over the years, but come on guys, is it really gonna hold a candle to OK Computer, In Rainbows, Kid A? These were the B-sides to Kid A, and some of them are absolutely fantastic, especially Pyramid Song. But others are just kinda not as good. There's no bad songs on this album, but for Radiohead, this doesn't quite reach the type of quality that you come to expect. And it wasn't meant to. It was literally supposed to be the companion piece to Kid A. I covered this in the Radiohead 2 Beats Plus review, so I'll let you go there if you really want to hear me talk more about it. It gets a B. Morning View, Incubus. Alright, full disclosure, I love Incubus. Brandon Boyd is one of the absolute best vocalists in the rock game even today. Their musicianship is absolutely fantastic and unparalleled. I also want to get out of the way that the songs on this album are stellar. You can't hear Boyd shriek out "She Let Out a Warning" and not feel some feels. But I have a problem with the way this thing is produced. Don't get me wrong, the 2000s are known for albums that are overproduced. It's a problem. Too loud, too much going on, too many add-ons. But this album has the strange problem of being the opposite. They couldn't crank things up just a little bit. Why does everything sound so frail and weak for such a dynamically strong album? Come on, these songs are supposed to pack more of a punch than this. Usually I don't like to complain about the production of an album unless it really holds back the quality. Sadly, as great as this thing is songwriting and musicianship-wise, I have to give it a B. Reveal, R.E.M. Man, late-stage rapid eye movement is both really interesting and really boring at the same time. There's some neat tunes and stylistic choices on here, do not get me wrong. But R.E.M. were kind of becoming a little complacent by this point in their career. They became these legendary rock gods for everything that they did for alternative rock. So it does feel like this album's on autopilot for a good chunk of it. That being said, it's not too bad of a listen, I just wish it did a little bit more. B-. Bloco do Sozinho, 2001's Hermanos. Sorry if I butchered that, I had to use Google Translate, and we all know that that's not perfect.
Bloco do Sozinho.
Yeah, so if you got a problem, blame Google Translate. Hey look, a Brazilian album that actually made my list. Now this thing easily fits under the style of more Americanized alternative rock with little touches of Latin pop thrown in here and there. When they bring in those horns and those instrumentations, it just tickles the right spots on your body. This thing is pretty fucking great. It's got some stellar vocals, the musicianship is fantastic, the production was great, the strings are great, and man, I actually ended up listening to this thing about 2 or 3 different times. Sadly, I don't want to butcher the pronunciation of a bunch of different tracks on here by name dropping them. I'm just gonna say check this thing out. This was way better than it had any right to be. A+. Southern Rock Opera, Drive-By Truckers. Tell me if this sounds like a good idea. A 90-minute Southern rock opera about Alabama. Yeah, totally. Sign me up, right? Yeah, I really wasn't looking forward to this one because I really hate it when albums go past a certain point in length. But let me tell ya, this thing wasn't too bad. And by not too bad, I mean utterly fantastic in a lot of places. The guitar work is absolutely great, and even though it's a southern rock album and the singer has that twang, it's done so tastefully that it's hard for it to really bother you. The lyrics talk about Lynyrd Skynyrd, the misunderstanding of Alabama. Southern American culture is also a heavy influence on this. And its politics might not have aged all that great, I'm gonna be clear on that. That being said, it does attempt to humanize the South in ways that you don't really see in modern culture. So I have to give the album that much credit. Easy A. Let It All Come Down, Spiritualized. You'd think that an album that took 4 long years after Ladies and Gentlemen We Are Floating in Space is gonna be a bit of a shaky experience, right? Well, actually no, this thing is pretty fucking good. You know, I've been looking around for like another good Spiritualized album to listen to, and this turned out to be it. It's lush for even Spiritualized standards, lots of emphasis on the orchestra. And there's a lot more choir in this one than in the previous effort. And man, as somebody who grew up as a choir kid, I adored that. What's really mind-blowing is that Jason Pierce didn't know how to read or write music and had to give all of these parts to people via humming or playing it on piano. Now, he's done that for all of his projects, but for something as complex as this, it's just mind-blowing. I was just really blown away by this thing. Easy A. We Love Life, Pulp. So, I guess I hadn't really heard of Pulp before hearing about this album. So I did some research, and it appears that Pulp is a pretty well-loved band, so I was looking forward to this. Now, don't get me wrong, I dig some of the poppier Stone Roses sounding tracks on this, but those artsier spoken word pieces, and I'm not one to generally bitch when things are artsy, just were too much for me. They didn't hold my attention as well as I wish they could have. And from what I've heard about Pulp, this album isn't even considered their best. It was just considered one of the best albums of 2001, and I saw it recommended and popped up quite a bit. I don't know why I just don't have too much to say about it. I did listen to it twice to see if anything in particular would stick out to me, and it just didn't. So the only grade I can give this thing is a B. B.R.M.C, Black Rebel Motorcycle Club. Dark psychedelic rock with shoegaze overtones should be a walk in the park, you would think. And yeah, some people actually do really genuinely love this album. For me, I'm just like, I'm ready for this thing to be over. With psychedelic rock, for me, it has to have a very specific tone to it, a very specific way that it's produced for me to like it. And sometimes it's just too thinly produced for it to be any interesting to me. And as dark and as special as this thing tries to be, I just didn't feel myself feeling this at all. That being said, I can tell why it's good, so it stays out of the C tier because of that. That way I can at least recommend it if somebody says that this is the type of stuff they're looking for. So if this sounds like it's up your alley, then consider it a B- from me, and probably something that you'll dig a lot more. The Nightly Disease, Madragada. Another band name I'm sure I mispronounced. Now this is a pretty cool sounding album. Now take Nick Cage's like late 80s, early 90s type of stuff and make it a little bit more aggressive and modern, and you basically get these guys. Low vocals, post-punk rhythms, and lots of influences from various other genres of music. That being said, for as interesting as it is, it does feel like it drags being nearly 66 minutes long. So for me, for that reason, I didn't feel anything much more than a B+ from this thing. But I do recommend it. Isolation Drills, Guided by Voices. Alright, this thing made it clear to me that I really need to check out B1000. There's some stellar musicianship on here. I really like the quirky approach that they take to their songwriting. The stylistic choices on here make it stick out very well, and that just tells me that the other stuff that's considered their masterpieces is probably going to be just that much better. There's a couple of weak moments on here, nothing deal-breaking. I don't have much more to say on this other than that. So just take my B+ from it and give it a chance. Feel the Fade, Push Kings. Nickelback, I owe you an apology. Oh God. This thing, right here, this is the worst thing that happened on 9/11. You know, at least butt rock can be hilariously edgy sometimes. We can kind of laugh about the stupid attempts at sounding serious with that stuff. And at least you can say that those bands have something of a personality. A shitty personality, but a personality. This album is one of the most insufferably tame, personality-free music I have ever heard in my life. And what's weird is that the Push Kings were actually pretty well revered prior to this album. I had to give this thing a shot because I saw the abysmal scores given to it by Pitchfork and AllMusic. And let me tell you, okay, just close your eyes and just imagine in your head the most inoffensive, just least interesting music you could ever conjure up. That stuff is fucking Beethoven compared to this. I would rather listen to some of the shittier selections from the pop section of this project than give this thing a shot ever again. This isn't an album. This is an act of terrorism. F+. I Get Wet, Andrew WK. Pitchfork gave that thing like a fucking 0 out of 10. It's stupid fun party music. Suck my dick, Pitchfork. I'm not gonna humor you guys by telling you guys how terrible you are. Everyone already told you that you overreacted with your initial review of this thing. B+. Girls Can Tell, Spoon. A nice, short, catchy album. I love some of the 60s textures and harmonies. It's one of those really nice albums that doesn't leave you too much to complain about and also doesn't do anything to completely blow you away, but you still enjoy the experience by the end of it. I just wish it delved a little bit deeper, then maybe I would have more to say and I'd be able to give it something higher than a B+. Insignificance, Jim O'Rourke. Jim O'Rourke is most famous for his little stint in Sonic Youth, but he's also made a name for himself as a solo musician. What we have here is a pretty nice noise pop album, plenty of feedback, catchy melodies, and my favorite are the unique lyrics. I've never quite heard writing like this. You can definitely see why he's a favorite amongst noise rock and Sonic Youth enthusiasts, so I give this thing an A-. Leaves Turn Inside You, Unwound. Jesus, this thing is great. We got ourselves some of the most fascinating textures and rhythms of 2001. I love hearing the vocals placed as low in the mix as they are as a shoegazer, although this is not a shoegazing album at all. The intensity of this album is enough to crush your testicles. Damn great album, A+. Change, the Dismemberment Plan. 2 great experimental rock bands back to back. I must be dreaming. While Misery and I is more well-loved, this thing is usually held to a very close second. In many ways, this band carries the spirit of the Minutemen, but with a little bit more aggression. I also like the amount of reverb that these guys use in the lyrics that talk about the working class. Although this album tends to have a little bit more talk about relationships than the usual Dismemberment Plan album. And dear God, can these guys turn on a dime with their musicianship. I really love the changing rhythms. Every song on here just goes into the next just seamlessly and perfectly. A+. Any Other City, Life Without Buildings. Okay, 3 stellar experimental indie rock bands. This time we get this nice, chill, reverby math rock. Eyes Like Lotus Leaves. The most unique thing about them, though, are the vocals of one Sue Tompkins. Oh my God, this woman has a very unique approach to her lyrics and her vocalizations. Eyes Like Lotus Leaves. She alternates between this bubbly, like little spoken word type of stuff, and then occasionally just goes all out with this pretty singing. You never know what to expect because of her on this album. Eyes Like Lotus Leaves. I really like her hypnotic melodies and the lyrics on the song Sorrow. Everything ties together so beautifully. A+.
Sorry for the massive drop in sound quality. My camera died just as I was trying to wrap up filming, and the good microphone had the cord chewed out by my cat. But thank you so much for watching. Be sure to like, subscribe, and comment on the video. I am sorry that this one took me so long to get together, as one of my rats got sick and I had to deal with that, as well as having to work an absolute butt ton of overtime in order to afford said vet appointment. But anyways, I will see you guys next time.